I'd like to welcome you to our session entitled Entering the Industry with Impact, a Guide to a Healthy and Successful Career in the AEC Industry. We have two really good speakers with us today, and I'm going to flip the bios here. Our first speaker was originally enrolled as a mechanical engineer here at UT Tyler, but then after a short elevator ride became a civil engineer. Our speaker today, one of our speakers today is Taylor Blanchard. Taylor is a licensed civil engineer who was born and raised in Waco and studied here in Tyler, currently works in Plano and lives in McKinney. He graduated from the UT Tyler Civil Engineering program in 2011 with a BS in Civil Engineering and became a licensed engineer in 2015. He's been blessed to have many great mentors in his short career and looks forward to helping others have impact in their industry by developing a healthy and successful career. He's currently a project engineer with Jones Carter. Please give a warm welcome to Taylor Blanchard. And our second guest today, these two gentlemen did an awesome tag team on this, so I'm looking forward to it getting even better. Our second speaker today became a licensed as an amateur radio operator at the age of 50, which is not usually typical because you can't remember all that stuff when you're my age. And there had been a desire to become a ham radio ever since he was in grade school. Mitch Fortner is a professional engineer and received a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Texas A&M University. And as I said before, we're not going to have anybody here that knows that, so I'll go whoop, whoop, where he graduated with honors in 1984. President of KSA with 34 years of experience. Mitch has been with the firm since 1984, with the exception of a 2-year term with the Federal Aviation Administration. Mitch's career has been wide varied and is involved in engineering design, construction, project management on airports, water systems, wastewater systems, streets, and drainage. And as I mentioned earlier today, okay, all the great things that makes civil engineering great. Since joining KSA, he has served as a design engineer, a project manager, a division manager, and director of marketing, then as an executive vice president, and now as president. He's very interested in the trends affecting our industry, and as such has consolidation and changes in workforce and technology. As a result, he's leading KSA to address these trends for the benefit of both KSA's employees and their clients. Rich remains very involved with marketing and the business development and the human resources functions of KSA. Professional engineer in Texas since 1988, he has professional affiliations with clubs or professional organizations such as the Texas Airport Council, American Society of Civil Engineers, American Council of Engineering Companies, and the American Association of Airport Executives South Central Chapter. Mitch and his wife Robin live near Longview and have 4 children ages 14 to 27. He's very involved with his family and church, and in addition, in his spare time, he runs a small cattle operation. Please give a warm welcome to Mitch Fortner.
All right, so we are so thrilled. This will be our second time to do this today, and excited to have every one of you here. What we hope to do today is to introduce you to the AEC industry. The AEC industry stands for Architects, Engineers, and Construction. We also hope to help you to understand enough about that industry to know if you'd be interested in possibly pursuing a career in that industry at some point. So we're going to be telling you a lot of stories about the industry, telling you a lot about how it works and different things of that nature, and hopefully giving you some ideas of how to be successful, whether you go into that industry or any other type of job when you graduate. So Taylor and I are thrilled to be here today. We do this in a kind of a tag team format, and it's very casual. We'll allow for about 15 minutes for questions at the end of our discussion. And so I would encourage you, we really would love to have any questions that you come up with throughout the presentation. Take notes of what you might want to ask when we get through here. So let's talk about the AEC industry. The AEC industry is a very robust, mature industry within the world. But let's talk about North America. There's probably 10,000 AEC companies within North America that range in size anywhere from one sole proprietor to over 100,000. Some of the larger firms include companies like AECom and Stantec and other firms like that. They do work all over the world, and there is a massive consolidation going on within our industry where mergers and acquisitions are a very big thing, and the bigger companies are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The super regionals are getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And it's happening in a number of industries throughout America, but we're one industry that is being very affected by mergers and acquisitions and consolidation. A lot of reasons for that.
Just for perspective, I mean, Jones Carter is based out of Houston, a huge area. We got offices up and down the 35 corridor, and we're a firm of about 460. And then KSA, Longview.
Yeah, we're founded in Longview in 1978, so we're celebrating 40 years this year. We have 130 some odd employees, including civil engineers, one mechanical engineer, a couple of electrical engineers. We have urban planner, landscape architect. We have architects, surveyors, airport planners, airport engineers, and so very diversified, but we focus in the aviation and municipal market primarily, which means that we design for cities, water, sewer, streets, drainage, parks, those types of projects. And for airports, we design runways, taxiways, aprons, visual landing aids, navigational landing aids, and things of that nature. We have 11 offices. Most of them are located in Texas, but we do have an office in Albuquerque, one in Norman, Oklahoma, and one in Shreveport, Louisiana.
I think what that speaks to is just it's a great industry, to be in right now.
Yeah.
A lot of great firms with different locations. That combined with the extremely low unemployment rate of 2%, the AEC industry as a whole is a great industry to be in right now.
Yeah, so the 2%, I heard the other day that the unemployment rate for civil engineers nationwide is about 2%, which basically is telling you that anybody that wants a job in the civil engineering profession that's qualified has a job. I mean, you will be graduating into an employee market. You will have your choice of opportunities. And it's a wonderful blessing for every one of you because you will have the opportunity to pick a job, hopefully, that will fit you and who you are, and that you can stay tuned into and be there for a while. Although I understand now that the average tenure before changing jobs nationwide across all employment is about 3 years, which is decreased significantly from, say, my father's time when he worked for United Gas Pipeline Company for 42 years. So there's seismic shifts occurring in the workforce that are coming into the AEC industry. There's seismic shifts occurring in the workplace design and how we do our work and the type of work environments that we provide for employees.
Yeah, and some of the roles you can have, at these AEC firms, technical specializations, management, marketing, and business development. As I said earlier in the first session, the smaller firms, there's probably a few people in that firm that wear multiple hats and don't have that defined role. As you get larger into bigger companies, they start to have to define that role, business development, marketing, technical or management. But it's kind of diversified however you want to go about. Usually you'll get to a point in your career, you'll start to realize what you enjoy, and hopefully that's in tune with what your company wants you to do, and then you can kind of choose what realm you want to go into.
Yeah. I remember when I was a junior, senior at A&M thinking to myself, okay, I'm fixing to get this degree. Now, how do I get a job? And so let's talk about some things that will help you to get a job. Now, for the newer students, the freshmen and the sophomores, and please don't throw paper wads at me when I say this, but one of the things that you can do is to graduate from this university with a good GPA. And I know that, if you don't have that, there's hope. You can overcome that by work experience and leadership, things where you show leadership. You can overcome it. But one of the easiest ways to demonstrate something to your prospective employer that will make them want to hire you is they look at your GPA and they understand that you have learned how to learn. Okay, that's what that GPA says to me as an employer. You know how to learn. And believe it or not, when you graduate from this institution, you're not going to stop learning. As you proceed through your career, it's going to be one continual learning process. And if it's not, you're probably going to stagnate at some point within your career. But if you take it upon yourself to continue learning, you will likely do well within your career. So the GPA demonstrates this person knows how to learn. The other thing that you can do that will help on your resume is if you can demonstrate that you've worked in the industry. So one of the things that I would suggest, make sure that you get an internship between your junior and senior years. Preferably earlier, if you can find a company within the industry that will hire you, get one between your sophomore and junior years. And on your resume, don't just give that kind of a secondhand treatment. Really, if you get a job in the industry as an intern, define on your resume, here's what I did. I wasn't just running copies. I was doing this and I was doing this, and it's directly related to the industry.
Yeah, and also finding some form of organization, whether it's ASC in school or maybe even through your church, serving as some type of member in that organization where you have a role. There's a lot of times where we're at career fairs and you'll notice, even though it's not within the industry, the organizational experience, it shows leadership skills of some sort. And so it's definitely important to highlight those and also get involved in organizations as early as you can.
Yeah, and I would suggest while you're here on campus, get involved in the ASCE if you're a civil engineer, get involved in ASME if you're a mechanical, and don't just go to the meetings. Try to become an officer in those, as you go through your time here, as you become a junior and senior, try to become an officer and do the hard work that's required to keep that club going, because what that shows to the prospective employer is that you have the potential to lead a team, that you have leadership skills. And that's a really good thing to have on your resume.
I think as important, you need to research companies beforehand. Usually they're posted these days, who's going to be at career fairs. And just like the firm is trying to figure out the right fit for them, it's almost as vital that you figure out what you want. It's going to be hard to communicate just walking up cold to somebody and not knowing what they do. It's not going to go very well. You need to really research what they do and if it's a fit for what you enjoy.
Yeah. And not only that, look for things, newspaper articles and legal issues associated with that company. You don't want to go to work for a company that's in bankruptcy court. You don't want to go to work for a company that has a lot of legal issues. So, and you can find all of that stuff on the internet, as you know better than I do, obviously. But But you want to do as much research about these companies so that when you walk up and you're talking to one of these career fair representatives, you can make a connection with that person. And obviously you want to dress for the occasion, you want to get groomed, you want to, have your Tic Tacs in your mouth or whatever you prefer, but you want to present a personal image to them, and they need to be able to envision you working as a professional in their organization. Okay, that's what that conversation is all about, and you're trying to impress upon them that, hey, I have the potential to come to work and be a high performing professional for your organization.
Yeah, and assuming that you get that job that you've gone after, you're going to have impact day one. It's going to be either a positive impact or a negative impact. It's really remarkable to me to just see how that relates just to your attitude. If you go into a job and you're going to always be positive, usually the outcome is going to be in your favor. So one way, an example of being negative, being new to a job, revolves around just gossip. You're going to get into your first job and there's going to be folks that don't necessarily enjoy that job as much as you would, or, have certain issues they're dealing with. I would highly discourage you from getting, into that group of people. Not to say don't communicate with them, but just avoid, sharing that gossip with others or spreading that can be very detrimental to an organization and your overall goal of moving up. So
yeah, that stuff's deadly. And I tell the story that Dave Ramsey and his organization, if you know who he is, he teaches Financial Peace University. He's on the radio, and he has about 700 employees. In Nashville, you might not know that, but they have a very big organization, and it's an amazingly well-run organization. And they have a culture, and they have values. There's like 10 or 12 values that they adhere to. One of those is no gossip. You get one warning at Ramsey Solutions to stop gossiping, and if you're caught gossiping a second time, you're fired on the spot. That's how deadly that can be, especially as a new employee coming in. You don't want to get caught up in that. And here's how I define gossip for any of you that don't know. In a corporation, if I'm talking to Taylor and we're yan about some problem within the organization or some person within the organization, and neither Taylor nor I have any leadership authority to solve that problem, that's gossiping. What the better solution there is, and the other thing is if you're talking about somebody else and they're not in the room with you, if you're casting dispersion on someone that's not with you, that's gossip. So the better solution to that is go to someone that has leadership authority to solve the problem. I tell people in my organization all the time, hey, come see me. Let's talk. Tell me what the problem is, and we'll see if we can figure out how to fix it. That's what we do. We fix problems. But if I'm a new EIT right out of college and I get caught up in that, and it's real easy. Listen, when you graduate, you'll recognize what we're talking about. There are people in the workforce who seem to enjoy that, and you don't want to be part of that. And so if you want to have a positive impact on the AEC industry, come in with a positive attitude and solve the problems that you can, and the rest of that stuff, get to somebody else that can solve those problems.
Or demonstrate solving the problem in a positive professional attitude.
Yeah.
Go about show leadership traits and doing that the right way.
Yeah.
But I think positive impact day one. Mostly everybody in their first job is gonna be responsible for producing in the engineering world, be producing engineering drawings or specifications, and so go in and be a problem solver. One thing that the younger generation has going for them is there's new technology. Even in old industries such as engineering is constantly changing, even more so now. So you may be the answer to a lot of inefficiencies that the company may need to be aware of or solve to be more profitable or be a better place to work.
Yeah.
So you have the power to do that. And so, aim to relieve the workload of your manager. I mean, that's really what you've been hired to do. They have a need for you to produce work, to take a workload off of somebody else. And, if you continue to do that, your manager's success will likely become your success. You'll either get recognized for that or promoted for that. So I think it's important just to go in and know that you have a role at that company and it can have a huge impact in what they're doing.
It is, when I graduated in 1984 and went to work for KSA, one of the things that I was impressed with was how quickly I was thrown into the middle of projects. And that's the same today. I mean, these companies will hire you because of your education to come do productive engineering work. They're not hiring you to just draw stuff that somebody else tells you how to draw. They're hiring you to think. And one of my first projects was a road layout. It was on, I remember the name of it, Fortner Road, and for the city of Dallas. It was by a new fire training, fire department training facility. And I laid that road out. And I'd never laid a road out in my life. And it had islands on it. And I was late. Back then, we didn't have CAD. So I'm using radius, templates and different things like this. And I spent all day working on that thing. And I'll never forget, the next morning I showed up and the lead engineering technician pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, Mitch," he said, "Mike Dunn, who was the project manager I was working for on that project," he said, "Mike was looking at your drawings on your desk last night and he's really impressed. He said he couldn't have done that much in one day." And you guys can have that kind of impact. You're going to have the energy and the knowledge when you come out of this university to really do some amazing things. And if you do it right, man, it lifts you. It just lifts your spirits. Like okay, for 4 years I've been studying this stuff, and now I'm getting to do it, and I'm having an impact. That's what you want to do when you go to work.
Yeah, and share your knowledge with other people, with your colleagues. Collaborate with them. A lot of times you'll learn something that you don't know from somebody else, and you'll trade. And it demonstrates leadership qualities early on for you to be able to delegate or share things with others. It's really important to have impact day one, to be able to share that knowledge with people and be willing to do so. Surprisingly, some people, think that that's the way to a bigger position is to hoard their knowledge, when I think actually if you look and probably did some research, it's probably opposite. People that are willing to share with others and share their knowledge move up quicker.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan said that there's no limit to what you can accomplish if you're willing to share the credit. And that applies not just to presidents of the United States of America, it also applies to young engineers starting their first job. And it will apply all the way through your career. Your goal ought to be to help everybody around you be successful, as well as yourself. Don't just focus on making yourself successful. You help everybody else be successful around you. And what that does is that creates a very positive energy for the company. And believe it or not, your personal career success is very tied into the success of the company that you're going to go to work for. And so helping other people to be successful in a way helps you. And also what happens is people look at that and they say, that guy's got, or that lady's got potential to be a manager, because they're working to help other people around them and they know how to help them. So
yeah, and so getting to a management position takes a career path, and that kind of leads us into career development. A lot of smaller firms, 5 to 10 people, maybe even up to 20, 25, don't necessarily put forth the effort or, know they need to define a career path. But no matter what industry you go in, you have a career path that's going to be defined by yourself or by someone else. And so it's really important to understand the career track that a company has in mind for you and, how you get to that next level. So I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, if you go to work for an architecture or an engineering company, and listen, in our industry, some firms are led by architects, but they have engineers that work there. Some firms are led by engineers, but they also have architects that work there. We have 3 architects in a company of 130, and they're very touchy about us calling ourselves an engineering company. Okay, so we have to be very careful about that. But from a career track perspective, if you come to work for an architecture or an engineering company, it's very likely that you're gonna design projects right out of the box. You're either gonna work on studies, or you're gonna work on plans, or you're gonna work on specs, or you're gonna help your project manager to administer construction projects. Okay, so you'll do that likely until you get licensed. And that takes generally 4.5 years for that to happen. You have to submit and keep track of everything you do during that 4.5 years, because you have to write a summary of all of your experience over that 4.5 years, 4 years
Yeah.
that's required. But you'll get to the point where you'll have to choose at some point, am I going to stay on a technical track where I become, say, a subject matter expert? Say I become a wastewater treatment process guru, or I become a structural engineer, or I become a guru in the area of highway design, or I become an aviation engineer. And that has profound impact on your future. Because you'll be saying, okay, that's probably where I'm going to hang out for the rest of my career. And so you can go down that track of being somebody that specializes in an area, or you can take another track that says, I'm going to be a manager. And so, firms like us, we have engineering managers, that they manage teams that produce the work that we described. And so you can go down that path. You can, if you're good at talking to people and have really good soft skills, you may wind up as a business developer, which means that you're helping to bring work in the door, because we have to go sell our qualifications, and we need people that can be out and talking to folks and bringing work in the door. You might go down a marketing track. So there's a lot of different areas where you can work within our industry, but at some point you'll probably have to choose which direction you're going to go.
And I think it's really important to define that as early as you can, or at least start to recognize what you enjoy and figure out what career path you're on, and then make it your responsibility to gain knowledge in that industry or that sector, and start to, continue to learn. A lot of these organizations that you'll work for, put on lunch and learns. It's really important to actually apply that knowledge. Hearing somebody talk about certain products or solutions, figure out how that applies to your job and actually implement it. And join professional organizations. It's a great way to continue to develop your career. And mentors, find a mentor at work. They kind of become your new professor. You learn the work or the technical skills in school, and then they kind of teach you how to apply it to the real world projects in a fashion that's makes a real world impact.
Yeah, I would say when you're interviewing with a company, ask them who your supervisor is going to be, and hopefully you'll be able to meet that person before you decide whether to go to work for them or not.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because really, your early career development has a lot to do with your first supervisor. And so it's very important that you find somebody that's going to invest in you personally, invest in your future by taking the time to train and help you over the hump on different types of projects that may be a challenge to you. And mentors are so important. I had a mentor, John C. Young, who in 1984 was the very first project manager I worked for when I came to KSA. He ultimately became our second president of KSA in 1996 and was president for 20 years until I assumed the office 3 years ago. And he was my mentor throughout my entire career with KSA, and was just a really great mentor who took time to help me to understand what we were doing and why. And those long drives to project sites, just talking about, that stuff's invaluable. It's just really good.
Yeah, and soft skills and focusing on the way you communicate at your workplace is almost as important as the technical skills that you hold. No matter what kind of project you're working on, you will have to likely communicate your work to someone else at some point. And doing that in the right fashion will really get you on track to moving up if you so choose. So
yeah, absolutely. I say that you can be the best engineer technically, but if you don't like people, you're going to limit your career success.
Yeah. And speaking of people, I mean, networking is becoming, so important in every industry. It provides benefits for not only you personally, but your company, for you to network. And, I heard, I listened to a podcast recently, and the guy said that, college, the actual return on investment is likely all the connections that you're making. I would encourage you to get out there and network with other students, and keep in touch with them. After college, you don't know it, but you're actually networking right now. We're not on LinkedIn or anything, but these are some of the most important connections you'll make in the industry. So, don't limit your network. If you go on Mitch's LinkedIn page, he's probably networking with people in all different professionals. And so talk to vendors, people come into your workplace to teach you something, follow up with them and say, hey, I really enjoyed your presentation. Can you give me more information or whatever? Networking really isn't just always asking for a connection or a handout. It's more so you want to provide value to whoever you're connecting with. That way they value the connection.
Yeah. I read a book recently about that. If you want to dig into it, it's called Never Eat Alone. And the author is not proposing that you eat every meal with somebody. But what he is doing is laying a foundation for how to network professionally and how to develop your professional network. Great book. I loved it. I especially loved what he had to say about when you walk into a professional reception, how to handle, like this morning, you've got this big group of people. Well, you can imagine yourself walking in as a consulting engineer, and that room is full of potential clients. So how do you handle that scenario? What do you do with that? They don't teach you that stuff at Texas A&M in engineering school. They may teach you that here, but if you start reading books like that, you'll begin to understand that the soft skills are as important as your technical skills in a great many cases. And he tells you exactly how to work that room, how to, and not come off as a cheesy used car salesman, which we all try to avoid as engineers. We don't want to do that. So, but that's really good stuff.
And utilizing your social media platforms. I mean, LinkedIn obviously being the most professional of such, but it's kind of becoming a Facebook in and of itself. But if you really use it for its purpose and getting connected with folks and learning, that's a very valuable tool. And I would say get on LinkedIn as soon as you can, even if it's just following certain companies, maybe companies that you want to work for, but also ones that or teaching or sharing a lot of knowledge, follow those people and just keep them in your network.
Yeah, I recently became active about 4 months ago. I'd had a LinkedIn account for years, and I'd not done anything with it other than to accept people's invitation to connect. And we're fighting a recruiting and retention battle in this low unemployment environment that we're in. It's really hard to recruit 20-year professionals, and it's really hard to retain 20-year professionals. So I started getting active on LinkedIn after I read a survey that said that they're like 80% more likely to go to work for a company whose leadership staff has a social media presence. And I thought to myself, well, that makes sense, because they're seeing the personality of the company through the social media accounts. And so I started getting active and writing original content and different things. And I can't tell you how many opportunities I've gotten from just that little bit of stuff. I've got one post that has like 14,000 views on it. And I'm like, what in the world? How in the world did this happen? And it's just a real simple post. But I think I got an invitation to be here today from Michael simply because of my presence on LinkedIn. He wouldn't have known about me otherwise. The university wouldn't have known about me. I got invited to be on the President's Advisory Committee at LeTourneau University because of it. I've been invited to speak at one national industry conference that Zweig Group is putting on. I was invited to speak at the Texas AE conference. And it's all because of what I'm doing on LinkedIn. And I look around and none of my people, none of my compadres that are president or CEOs of AE companies are doing this. And I'm thinking, this is a real missed opportunity. It's free. I'm not paying any upgrade charges or anything. It's just free.
You work really hard to have that brand. Mitch puts a lot of great original content on LinkedIn, so I'd highly recommend you follow him. And my firm's probably mad because I like all of his posts. But a brand in the context of what we're talking about when we say building the brand. The definition we're defining it as a particular identity or image regarded as an asset. And so you have your personal brand, and your company has theirs. And it's really important that you understand your company's culture and core values. Almost every company these days, if they're wanting to grow and retain talent, has a set of core values that they operate by. At Jones Carter, I just started there 7 months ago. Ours are Q-Care, quality, collaboration, respect, ethical behavior, and accountability. And I'm sure KSA has a set of core values that they live by.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear them. Got them memorized?
There's 5 of them. And I actually carry around a Q card. I passed this out. It's a 40th anniversary business card, and it has our core values on the back. I could have done this by memory.
No, I know.
I just want to make sure.
I think you did it in the first session.
Yeah, actually, no, I didn't. Collaborative teamwork, commitment to excellence, mutual respect, consistent integrity, and future focus. Now listen, just because a company has words on a card does not mean squat. And so don't base your decision on what company you're going to go to work for on what words are on the wall. Here's what you want to do. You want to see these, and then as you interview with them, you want to try to understand if they have the integrity to live these things out. And you can tell if you walk around and they say they have a commitment to excellence, and yet their office is just nasty. Does that demonstrate a commitment to excellence? That's not integrity, is it? And so there are many, many other little things that you can look for as you interview that will tell you, okay, are they just blowing smoke at me, or is this real live stuff? And man, that's where the rubber meets the road for management within a company, is to live out these values. And we're going through a strategic planning process at KSA right now, and that's one of the things that we're really focusing on is, does this stuff matter?
Yeah.
And it's got to matter, or why waste the time to even talk about it?
Yeah, he posted something on LinkedIn the other day. I think you were at Panda Express. They had some core values listed on the wall. And when I saw them, I was like, when I'm at Panda Express, I kind of feel like they live up to that.
Absolutely.
And
I
so,
do too.
Yeah, every company's doing it. But I think integrity, the word integrity, I think, there's going to be a lot of employers that don't, or a lot of employees that don't embody the core values of the company. It's up to you to continue to work with integrity. You'll typically always hit those core values as long as you can continue to work with integrity. So.
Yeah, I think it's real important, because here's the deal, especially in the AEC industry, most of our work, because we work on the publicly funded side of the world as opposed to the privately funded side of the world. What do I mean by that? The funding for the projects that we do comes from taxes. And so we're working for cities, we're working for counties, we work for the state, we work for airports, and all of that stuff is funded by your taxes. And long ago, and you need to write this down and look it up if you haven't studied it already, it's called qualifications-based selection processes, QBS. You can also look up the Brooks Act, which is the federal act that requires QBS for engineering companies and architectural companies and other professional service providers. And so when you come to work for a architecture or an engineering company, you are an ambassador for that company. When I say qualifications-based selection, we're not competing on the basis of price. We don't even mention price until we've been selected, and then we negotiate with the owner, with the client. And so how you conduct yourself in front of our clients and potential clients has a huge impact on the company's ability to get work. And so if you go into a client meeting and make an ass of yourself in that meeting, there's a very good chance that they're not going to deem us qualified to do their next project, because they don't want to work with that kind of people. Nobody wants to work with people that they don't like being around. And so it's very easy under the qualification-based selection process to say, nope, they're not qualified, they're done. And so if you come into our industry, your leadership is going to want you to represent the company 24/7, 365. Doesn't mean that you're working, but it means that you really have to recognize that everything that you do is a reflection upon your employer, especially under a hypercritical environment that is based upon qualifications-based selection.
Yeah, you're a walking advertisement of the
Yes.
firm or your employer.
Yes.
I was telling the first session, I actually remember it when we were talking about it. I was at my grandma's house one night, we were eating dinner, and she saw us in a newspaper article and then realized what we do. And she didn't really even know at that point. And their church was going out, for engineering. And she's like, oh, we'll talk to this guy, and of course my grandma only said good things about me. But anyways, just know that everything you do outside of work even is a walking advertisement of whoever you're working for. So I think that leads us into lessons learned. I actually left that over here. How are we doing on time?
It's 1:59. We're 44 minutes in.
Okay. Yeah. So lessons learned, basically lessons learned really come out of mistakes or successes. Lessons learned, you're going to make mistakes. I mean, everybody's going to make mistakes. Mitch will probably admit that he's made a few mistakes recently. I've always made mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The important thing when you make a mistake is to turn it into a lesson learned and share that with somebody else on your team so that they can avoid making that same mistake, or you can, to your best ability, avoid making that mistake. And, as you go about your career, you'll start to realize that these lessons learned or these mistakes become rules of thumb. It's kind of crazy that a lot of the engineering that you learn in school, once you gain experience, really boils down into but there's certain things on projects that occur over and over again that you can really just pull from your experience and know that that's the right thing to do without even going into all the engineering calculations. And so lessons learned are a lot of firms almost, I think Jones Carter even knew there, but part of their year-end review is to share lessons learned. It's important to share that with your team so that people avoid making the same mistakes. And to share those, you have to be a humble leader. I would encourage you, no matter what job you get, to stay humble and know that you don't know everything, and ask for help when you need help.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to expand on lessons learned.
Yeah. One of the things that you should recognize is that if you're an engineer, there's a reason why the various states, all of the states within the United States, license professional engineers, and there's requirements to obtain your license as a professional engineer. And the reason for that is that they're protecting the public. And so your job as a professional engineer, you owe a duty to your employer, but not only that, you owe a duty to the public. You can't do something, even if your employer asks you to do it, if it's unethical or if it's unsafe, and might cause harm to anybody. And so this humbleness, I think, takes on a great importance because it's not just you that is affected by your work. We have a great responsibility as licensed professional engineers to the public. And hubris and pride and know-it-all attitudes have absolutely no room at the table when it comes to making decisions about designs that have such a profound life or death impact on the public. That's how important that is. I mean, it's easy to say stay humble, but you've got to understand what your limitations are, because it's likely that you'll be asked to design something that you don't know anything about. That's okay, because you're going to continually be learning. When you walk out of here, you won't know how to design, something that you're asked to do. That's okay. But you have to know when to ask for help. And you can't do stuff that you don't know anything about, that you can't come to a professional conclusion on.
That kind of leads us into sharpening the saw.
Yeah.
Doing something once a week to improve. Make small steps towards significant improvements in your knowledge. It becomes a little easier to do that if you do it, every week. I was telling the first session that, I think Warren Buffett and Bill Gates said that if you're not spending 5 hours a week, dedicating to honing your craft or improving, you're falling behind or you're doing yourself a huge disservice. It's very easy to do with all the platforms out right now, and audiobooks even, or anything. Just do whatever you can to gain in knowledge, once a week, small step. And hone your craft and learn to love reading. I'm sure, did you say you read like 21 books this year or something?
24.
Gosh, I'm only trying to do 3. But, for the longest time, I didn't realize until, I got into the workforce that I was having a tough time retaining information that I read out of books. And, what I realized, strangely enough, is that I have to read out loud. So like I'll have to close my door at my house and my wife has to put in her headphones. Like literally I read books out loud. Like that's me kind of learning it. So find that method for you that helps you retain knowledge and implement it.
Yeah, and let me tell you how important this is. When I graduated from college, there was no such thing as a fax machine. no such thing as a cell phone, no such thing as well, the Apple IIc was out. And soon thereafter, the little IBM PC came out, the PCAT came out. And so when I came into the industry, we were preparing drawings by hand. We had a room this size that was full of drafters, not CAD technicians, but drafters. And so I guarantee you that 30 years from now, when you're standing in this spot, you'll be able to tell the story about how technology has evolved throughout your career. But technology is not the only thing that has evolved. Here's something else that has evolved. If I treated people the way I was managed as an EIT right out of school, I wouldn't have any employees working for me. I wasn't treated bad, but I was treated, I was in an authoritative management environment where you were told what to do, expected what to do, and if you didn't do it, you know, then that was bad. It was just real bad. Now we're in, so what I tell people is that I don't know of any other place in the United States of America today where authoritative management works than the armed services. And you think about it, they have to work under that type of a leadership structure because that's life or death. Those people have to have a system where they can issue an order and know that it's going to be accomplished. That does not fly in an engineering company or any private company to my knowledge today. In a 2% unemployment environment, if I treat somebody like that, they're going to walk out the door, walk down the street and get another job because they won't put up with it. They just won't put up with it. And so if I had come into the job as executive vice president or president of KSA and just done things the way I had always seen them done in our company, we would be suffering a huge retention problem. It's already bad enough as it is, but it would be even worse. And so I've had to learn. I've gone and got credits toward my MBA degree. I'm not finished yet. I had to stop, too much stuff on my plate. I read almost every night. Try to read 24 books a year, like this year. Last year it was 20. I'm increasing. But that's how I learned, and networking that he talked about, and talking to other professional managers and executives. So it's huge. It's very important, not only for management, but also for your engineering skills.
Yeah, well. And sharpening the saw isn't always, gaining knowledge or continuing to learn. It's also, recharging your batteries.
Yeah.
You'll likely start to hear the word burnout more and more. I mean, it's a huge problem in a lot of industries right now. Everybody's so busy, getting overworked and stressed. And, I would encourage y'all to avoid doing that by understanding that you need to always, take some time for yourself and recharge your batteries and sharpen your saw in that manner.
Yeah, it's very important. It's very near and dear to my heart because I've had 3 20-year mid-level career engineers in the last 2 or 3 months come to me and say, Mitch, I've been designing plans and specifications. I've been fighting contractor battles for 20 years and I'm tired and I just don't know. I don't see any change in the future and I just don't know that I can keep doing this. And I get it. When I was project manager, it was before email, it was before text, and I could get in my truck and drive to my airport project in Fort Smith, Arkansas, through the beautiful Ozark Mountains and have 4 solid hours with no interruptions. Okay? Now, my project managers get in the car, get in the truck and drive 4 hours, and they're likely to have 10 text and 5 conference calls that have been set up for them. I mean, people don't look at your schedule and see that you're driving and say, oh, well, he'll be out of touch. They say, oh, that'll be a great time for a conference call.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can schedule that for him. And so what happens is you do that for 20 years and it wears on you.
I did it for 7 and hit it.
Yeah.
So it can happen at an early age. Like you said, not seeing, a different way. Just production, or whatever you're doing over and over again without growth is going to usually lead to burnout.
Yeah.
Or just an overload.
Yeah. So it's really important to recognize the purpose in what you're doing. One of the things that can really ward off, I've been reading books. I had lunch with a guy that's an author in this subject in Little Rock a couple of weeks ago, wrote a book called Reversing Burnout by Peter Atherton. And one of the things is that if you can associate purpose with what you're doing, you're much less likely to feel like you're just in a robotic mode that's never ending. And so purpose is one thing. Recreation is another thing. This whole work-life balance, there's something to it, guys. I mean, there's something to the fact that you cannot, in the technological age that we are in today, you can't be plugged in 24/7, 365 and expect to remain sane in our industry. You just can't do it. So you need to be very careful.
Work-life balance, it's really being advertised right now on all the jobs. That and core values are pretty much, on everybody's listings. But work-life balance doesn't necessarily come in the form of having recreational facilities at the employer. Just like understanding core values, you need to really understand where you're going to work for. If that's a need for you or a desire to have that, to really understand if that's what they offer. Sometimes firms will advertise that and say, oh, we have refreshments and ping pong tables. Well,
Yeah,
it's not really work-life balance.
If they put a ping pong table in your open floor space, but then make you work till 10:30 at night, I'm just saying they hadn't figured out the work-life balance.
Yeah, for sure. And then, the goal of sharpening your saw is to become a trusted advisor. No matter what industry you're in, you really want to, not only move up, but also gain the knowledge so that people trust in you for their solution to whatever it is. I think that's the goal of every profession, is to become the trusted advisor.
Absolutely.
With that comes success. And then, if you persistently improve, that's where you really start to have an impact day after day. And I mean, up there, that should have probably said helping clients, colleagues, and just others in general. But really, at a firm, if you're having impact every day, you're usually helping other people. That's probably what you're doing most of the day, is helping other people, and you're in a management position. And so it's just really important, especially if you become an engineer, just like your responsibility is to uphold, public safety and health. It's also to help other people solve the problems they need to produce those projects.
Okay. So it's good stuff.
I don't know if you want to share anything else.
No, I would just say that y'all been very patient, very attentive, and I really appreciate that. And we'd love to answer any questions that you have at this time.
You guys mentioned like going into job interviews and stuff like that to really make yourself marketable for the job that you're going for, type of stuff. So my question to that is, what would you say is more important, like fitting the role that you are trying to go for, or being true to yourself, being who you are?
Well, yeah, you don't want to try to be something you're not.
Yeah, it won't work out.
It won't work out long term. You will eventually be miserable. And so what I would say is find a job that fits who you are.
Yeah.
Find a mentor that fits who you are. I mean, y'all have so many opportunities with this low unemployment. Take your time and find a company that really fits you and that is going to be someplace that you can really invest in. Like I said, the typical or the average tenure at a company now before someone leaves is 3 years. And I heard another statistic the other day that, like 70% of the employees across all industry in the United States of America are not engaged and hate their jobs. That breaks my heart. I mean, why in the world would you get up every morning and go to a job that you hate and that you don't want to give your full attention to once you get there? Find somewhere that you can. I mean, you're at the perfect point in life to make sure that that happens. When you get locked into an industry, get locked into a company, it's much harder to transition to a whole different thing. Find something. I know it's kind of hard because you don't have the experience to be able to analyze and figure out what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. But it's really worth some introspection to figure out who am I? I mean, here's an example. I told this in the first deal. You know, the open floor space in an office is a big thing now, where you just have a huge open office, and you may not even put cubicles in it. You may just put desks in it.
Standing desk.
Yeah, or standing desk. And that sounds like, you know, just a wonderful environment for some people. It would drive me insane because I'm the kind of guy that I can't work if I'm listening to music. Now, my daughters, every time they sat down to do homework, they'd put headphones or earbuds in, and they'd be listening to music the whole time they were doing their homework. It would drive me crazy. I can't focus. I have to be able to have quiet where I can think and write. And if I don't have that, I'm bouncing around, you know, like a rabbit in a garden, just going here and there and wherever, or like a puppy, you know. I mean, it's that bad. So I wouldn't thrive in that kind of and that's easy enough for you to figure out is, okay, how do I like to work? Am I easily distracted by other people talking around me? Because if you're in an open office environment, people are going to be talking nonstop all around you, and you're going to be expected to produce work. So it's easy enough. Just ask them, tell me about your workplace design. Is it open floor plan, or will I have an office? And then go somewhere that fits who you are.
I think you can ask firms, you probably don't ask them if you're going to have an office when you're at your first career fair. Yeah. But you can learn a lot from their website. I mean, a lot of these people that have the open space floor plans really advertise it. Yeah. You know, and if you don't feel like you work well in that environment with other people, then maybe they shouldn't be, you know, on your dream list of jobs. But also that's probably not a bad question to ask people these days when you're at a career fair. Hey, tell me a little bit about, you know, the environment and the workspace. You know, and show them that you're kind of in tune with what's going on. You know, I know a lot of people are going to open space. Y'all do that. It's probably not a bad question to ask.
Yeah, I think it's great.
So much of it is personality driven too. Like Mitch was saying, you know, if you are lucky enough to get the job interview or have multiples, meet the people that you're going to be working for and with. Because a lot of your happiness is going to come out of just other people that you work with.
Yeah.
On a day-to-day basis. So.
Any other questions?
From a management position, what do you expect when you hire an EIT? Like, what do you expect from them in the workplace? And like their knowledge and their capabilities?
You know, we get EITs at very different levels of capabilities that come. And I'll tell you, one of the challenges that we have with young engineers is the ability to write and to communicate orally. And so if I could give you any advice on what to do before you leave this university is make sure that you can put together a paper in a sense that it isn't riddled with grammatical errors, spelling errors, and make sure that you have a firm grasp on writing, because I don't care what field you go into, you're going to be writing something. And then there's a good chance that you're going to be presenting your designs to somebody. And so you're going to have to communicate in an oral way, maybe with a whiteboard, maybe with you know, a computer or whatever. And ultimately, if you come into our industry, you may be invited to a presentation where we go present for a potential client for prospective job, for prospective project. And so what do we expect? That's one of the things that, man, I really ask about in my job interviews is, my famous question is, rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0, I can't put two words together behind each other without making an error, to 10, I write novels on the weekend for fun. And so, that when you start talking specifically about that, you get a sense of where people fall, and then we do follow-up questions, because people are notorious for having a hard time understanding where they fit, what they're good at and what they're not so good at. And so you have to drill down. But that's one thing that we'd love to see is that we'd love for you to have a basic understanding of engineering principles that can be applied to the field that we've hired you to do. So if you come to work for us to do airports, we're going to want you to understand how to do vertical design and put together a profile. We're going to want you to understand what cross sections are, be able to go to the internet, get a FAA advisory circular that gives design criteria, read those design criteria.
It's a long document.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of them, a lot of them. I mean, you have that many of them, but you need to be able to understand the design criteria, use your engineering knowledge, and then apply what you know to your design from that design.
Most good companies are going to know that you're coming on board with the basic knowledge of civil engineering. Really, what you need to bring to the table is a positive attitude to learn.
Yes.
It should be the company's responsibility to place you with some form of mentor. It could come in the form of a 2-year EIT that you're fresh on board. Sometimes that's the best. They'll tell you everything that they've made a mistake on, or it's going to be, a 15-year project manager. You're going to learn different things from them. But I think above all else, what I see, EITs just need to have, the positive attitude to learn.
Yeah. A learning attitude, an attitude of being able to be taught. That would be good. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So as someone who's hiring a fresh out of undergraduate, would you find it wise if they were wanting to get their master's in business to address that and say, I've applied to school, I'm wanting to go, or would that be something maybe you should hold off until you're established in that position? You know what I mean?
So you're interviewing for a job, but you're thinking that you're going to get your MBA while you're beginning your job?
So night school, online classes, all of that. But it would take up your time starting a new job. You would kind of be splitting still half and half.
I would definitely tell them that what your intention is, because you definitely don't want to get down the road and, you've got a big test and you've got to go. Yeah,
some people are very supportive of that. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So it would be something to hold off on doing.
No, I think if you can, it's all up to you. If you can balance that, I think that I would see that as a positive. But I'm not a manager, so but it shows a willingness to, I guess, continue to learn.
Yeah, no, I would view that as a very positive thing. You might want to consider the option of getting whatever degree that you're looking for, just trying to get it as fast as you can and then going out into the workforce. I don't know, there's pros and cons both ways on that. But the fact that you want to get an MBA on top of an engineering degree tells me that you want to head toward an engineering management, or you want to have some kind of an entrepreneurial pursuit along with your engineering role. And that's great. I mean, there is a lot of room in the AEC industry for that kind of pursuit. So.
Anything else?
So you mentioned books and you mentioned podcasts earlier. Would y'all have any recommendations for us, maybe things to read to kind of, like you said, sharpen our saw as far as learning goes?
I mean, it doesn't hurt to, like, if you're trying to really, maintain that positive attitude or learning, it doesn't, I mean, you can Google, the best people to follow on LinkedIn pretty quick. Make an account tonight, get on there and start following people. I mean, it's pretty easy. And then, there's so much information out there that you can start to hear, different perspectives that maybe get you off track. I would say find those folks that you really enjoy learning from and just continue to keep up to date with what they're publishing and really stay focused on what you're trying to improve and implement that.
I've got about 50 podcasts in my list. I was listening to one on entre leadership this morning on the way over here as the founder. They were interviewing the founder of Dollar General, actually his son. It was pretty interesting. The Zweig Group has a podcast. PSMJ has a podcast that are industry specific for the AEC industry. I've actually been on the Zweig podcast before, which is kind of fun. You can tune in and learn all about my grandparents on that podcast. So, good stuff. Are we done? Awesome. Thank y'all so much for your time. If you have additional questions, we'll hang around and feel free to come visit with us, and we'll be happy to answer any more questions that you might have.